Hello. Hello.
I can hear you, Dave.
Oh, okay.
Ryan, can you hear him?
It says I'm unmuted.
I can hear you just fine. Yeah.
Is that Jim?
Oh yeah, we're just wondering where Ryan's at right now.
Oh,
Jim, you here? Hmm.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't want
Okay,
to talk
okay,
too much since we're live.
okay. Oh, okay.
Hello,
okay.
Dave, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Jeez.
It's you. We're here.
Okay.
SportsBeat Weekly. We're going.
You want me to do an intro?
First episode of SportsBeat Weekly. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and welcome everybody to the show.
Right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome, sports fans, to SportsBeat Weekly, a production of Oregon SportsBeat, an in-depth look at sports over the last week. And it's brought to you by Oregon SportsBeat. I'm your host, Dave Hall, along with our co-host, Brian Johnson. We've got an action-packed lineup for you today, and we've got guests for you. At 1:15, we're going to be joined by Loeb. She's the executive director of the Oregon Girls Lacrosse Association. She's going to talk about their upcoming tournament and what's going on in the Oregon OGLA. At 1:30, we're going to be joined by Justin Barchus. He is the head coach of the Central Catholic boys baseball team. They'll talk about their season, about making the playoffs, and the structure of the playoff format, which is a little different this year for the Mount Hood Conference. And at 1:45, we're going to be joined by John Tawa. He is one of the writers for OSAA.today, their sports section, and he's going to talk about how they put that together, where they get their information from. And as a bonus, he's going to talk about every parent's dream. About 3 weeks ago, his son got called up to Major League Baseball and is currently playing for the Arizona Diamondbacks. But first, we're going to talk about Oregon SportsBeat's action over the weekend. We covered the Oregon Youth Soccer Association tournament, and Ryan, it was a resounding success.
Yeah, we covered 6 games out there at Twalton Hills Rec Center over the weekend, and it's a beautiful facility. OYSA has been out there for at least 30 years, holding the state championship finals for all the age groups. I played out there when I was a kid 2 times, won 2 state championships on my youth soccer teams. So we covered the older age groups, the boys and the girls, so the 16s, 17s, and 19s, and it had some great soccer action.
I actually did the U16 boys and girls. Ben Paul covered the U17 and U19 girls. He's going to join us for a minute to talk about that. And you and I will talk a little bit about the U19. When I showed up to do those games, I noticed 2 things right off the bat. One was there was a big crowd at 9 o'clock in the morning for U16 girls soccer, and that was very impressive. The other thing that you and I have talked about is the field was huge, and that kind of brought a lot more effort on the part of the participants.
Yeah, that is a big field for the 15-year-old girls. It's a lot of field space, and so it's hard to create a lot of defensive pressure when the field's that big. There's just so much space to move the ball around, and so I think that slowed the game down a little bit. The boys came on afterwards at 11:30. You saw the speed of the game pick up, but that's just the nature of the sport with a field size like that and a people size like that.
All right, then in the games that I covered, the 9 o'clock game with the girls U16, it featured United PDX and Oregon Surf. Oregon Surf made up from players all around the state. In fact, our coach told me they had 4 players on the team from Bend. After a scoreless first half, Oregon Surf scored 4 minutes into the start of the second half for a 1-0 lead, and they made that stand up for a victory, and they claimed the championship in U16. In the boys 16, it was United PDX versus Metro Westside, another scoreless first half, and another 4 minutes in the second half when Metro scored a goal. They added a goal later. United PDX got on the board just before the end of the game, and that championship went to Metro over United PDX 2-1. So congratulations, Oregon Surf. Congratulations to Metro Westside, the girls and boys U16 champions. I know Ben is going to join us. Maybe he's here already, and he can talk about the girls U17 and U19.
Yeah. Hey, Ben. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me on.
Yeah. Hey, can you give us the rundown of what was going on down at the on Field 1 for those morning games last Saturday out in Walton Hills Rec Center?
Absolutely. Beautiful day for it. I did the girls under 17 and the girls U19. We'll go in order. I'll start with the U17 match. So first of all, 2 very well-coached teams. You had FC Salmon Creek, who's coached by Tina Frimpong Ellertson, who is a former U.S. women's national team player. She was squaring off against PCU, who looked like they were in tremendous form, coached by Johnny Cardeo. So first of all, I want to give a big shout out to both of those coaches. In this game, the big key was PCU, just a fantastic team. They were in great form. I could go on forever highlighting everyone, but I'm not going to do that because we're on limited time. But everyone had a very solid performance. They were tight in possession. They were comfortable playing out of the back. All their wings were comfortable cutting inside after it looked like they were going to have a cross with their left foot. But just to highlight a few players, Tess Ibsen, remember, these girls are mostly sophomores and juniors. She's got Division I talent written all over her. She's a center back. Jane Rowe plays at St. Mary's Academy. She scored a goal. She also probably deserved an assist that she didn't quite get, but a 3-0 win for PCU. So Portland City United just looked like they were in fantastic form. But FC Salmon Creek, coached by, of course, as I mentioned, Tina Frimpong Ellertson, and by the way, her daughter, Mackenzie, who was a Division I player herself, is an assistant coach. She just said she's so proud of all the adversity her team had to overcome with injuries. She's very proud of them making it to regionals. So even though they had that loss, she's very proud of her team, and they look good as well. Just ran into a very good PCU team. And to move on to the last game that I covered in the girls U19, this one was a phenomenal match. Eastside Timbers, coached by Greg Flegger, versus United PDX, going for a 4-peat, coached by former pro Eric McClellan. And this one was interesting because United PDX is actually playing 1 year up. The girls have just come together and played together so well. They kept winning at their own age groups. They moved up and went for a 4-peat there. Eastside took the lead early. A phenomenal strike by Keisha Lopez from about 32 yards out, and that gave them the lead. But United, they struck back when Ellis Highland tied it off of a phenomenal header off of a corner kick delivery from Shea Manfredi, and they came back to win the game. And the story of that one is that Eastside had more chances. They're probably going to be kicking themselves for not finishing some golden opportunities, but credit to United PDX. They got it done. Monser on a counterattack gave them the winning goal, and they got their 4-peat with even playing up in age groups. So big shout out to Coach Eric McClellan, all the girls there. They just looked like they were in good form too. But Eastside, again, going to be kicking themselves, but they played a really good game, and it was a pleasure getting to call that match. So that's what I've got to say about those games, Ryan.
Ben, I'm very familiar with Eric McClellan, and I don't know if you knew this or not. Eric McClellan was an All-American when he played at Virginia Tech. He's in the Virginia Tech Hall of Fame along with a number of other people, Michael Vick, for example. So Eric has really got great pedigree in soccer.
He was phenomenal getting to talk to before the game. He said his girls, they don't get too high or too low. They just stay focused on what they can do, and they've really come together. They play a really good game.
All right. And thanks for joining us. Brian, you and I can recap the boys U17 and the boys U19. Well, Jack MacArthur actually called those games, but you saw them. Tell us what you can about those two games.
Yeah, I was able to catch most of the U17 and U19 boys championship games. The U17 game featured another United PDX team, coached by Matt Broadhead. We're familiar with him. And they were playing against ADF Portland. So two very different styles of play. United PDX had the size advantage. ADF probably had a speed advantage. And ADF was called for kind of a harsh penalty, but it was two hands. There was two-hand contact, a very light push, but with two hands directly in front of the referee in the box. And it was unfortunate. It happened pretty early in the game. And it was unfortunate because that was how ADF was playing the whole game, and the ref decided to call a foul on that particular play. But my kind of interpretation of it is that this is how these guys play all the time. They probably play with adults, and the game is a lot more physical. And that type of stuff is not called foul. But at the youth level, I think they're calling it a little bit tighter. And so ADF was penalized early. United converted on the penalty kick to get their first goal. And then as the game went on, it was just it was all United, and they ended up winning 4-0 in the U17 boys final. So that one, yeah, so that one really wasn't that close. The U19 game was, from what I saw, the game of the day. It pitted again another United PDX team, again coached by Matt Broadhead, up against Oregon Premier Football Club. Jorge Villafana, was on the sidelines for OPFC. This one had tons of talent all over the field. Extremely good matchup, size, speed, technical ability, two very, very well-coached teams. They went at each other in regulation, finished regulation in a 2-2 tie, played 30 minutes of overtime, and then went to penalty kicks where OPFC won 4-2.
Sounds like a great matchup. It was a great
That
day
was a great
for great day for the Oregon Youth Soccer Association.
It was perfect weather out there. No rain, not too windy, not too hot. Yeah, just another great day of soccer championships. So we really enjoyed it.
All right, are we ready to bring in Loeb, who is the executive director of the Oregon Lacrosse Association?
We are ready to bring in Allie. She's in the waiting room. Jim, can you admit her? And let's get going with our Oregon Girls Lacrosse Association segment. Welcome, Allie.
Hi there. Glad to be here.
Hi, Allie. How are you?
Doing great today. Yeah. How are you guys?
Good. We talked last night. Allie, for people who aren't familiar with you, can you give us a little bit about your lacrosse background?
Sure thing. Well, I've been the executive director for OGLA since the fall of 2017. So this is my 8th season doing work for OGLA. Prior to that, I'm born and bred in Oregon. Started playing as a Hillsborough youth kid in seventh grade, and then played at Liberty High School and was recruited to play D1 at Siena College in New York. Didn't finish out my time there, ended up transferring to Pacific University to play Division III. And then after my last concussion, I retired from lacrosse for a little bit to finish school, and then started coaching at Westview High School before I finished college, and have been there for the last 14 years.
I think you told me before you had like 10 concussions.
I have had a few mix from soccer and lacrosse. The one in college just set me back a little bit, and decided to take a minute, focus on finishing my degree, make sure that I got through school. I have returned to playing lacrosse since then. I actually play for Portland Purple, the women's team that's local to here too. So.
And you mentioned you're the assistant coach at Westview, and you've been doing that, I think you told me, 5 years?
Oh, I've actually been there for 14 years.
14. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And been the executive director of the OGLA the last 8 years. Can you kind of give us a little indication of what kind of duties that entails?
Absolutely. I do everything that makes our league run, from scheduling to website to communications with all the coaches, making sure that our coaches are good to go with their certifications, that all of our kids are USA Lacrosse members. Um, any questions that people have, they come right to me. I help manage our OGLA board who makes all the decisions. But all of the behind the scenes admin stuff, that's all the stuff that I do. I take care of all the bookkeeping, make sure that people pay their dues and we can function as a nonprofit organization, and provide, the best opportunity for all the girls, both high school and youth, to play lacrosse in Oregon.
Now, the state tournament is coming up, not this week, but next week. Oregon SportsBeat is actually doing I believe we're doing a lacrosse game tomorrow night. I believe that's Central Catholic and Wells. But the tournament is coming up next week. Can you explain a little bit about where the tournament is, what the format is, and that?
Absolutely. On the girls' side, we run two different brackets. We run the state championship bracket and then a silver cup bracket. The state championship bracket includes the teams ranked 1 through 12 in lax numbers. That's our ranking system. And then the silver cup bracket includes the teams ranked 13 through 20. And then any league champions that are ranked below number 20 actually get an auto bid into the silver cup bracket. So it's a cool system. It allows every single league in the state to have at least one team from their league represented in the playoffs. This week we start
You
first.
actually,
Oh, go ahead.
you actually, you actually award trophies in the silver division, so that those teams get a shot at winning some hardware. I like that. A lot of teams maybe consistently are in the 20s in the rankings. This gives them a chance to walk away with some trophy at the end.
Absolutely. And the way that our ranking system works, especially for those outlying teams, is that when you play teams within your league that may not be of a higher caliber, it's very difficult to move up in those lax number rankings. And so by providing the league champions an opportunity to play in the playoffs no matter what, even if they don't achieve a ranking high enough through the algorithm, they still have a buy-in to be able to compete for that Silver Cup trophy.
Now, I know your semifinals, I believe, are next Monday night, and then I think your silver championship is next Tuesday night. Your gold champion maybe next Friday night. Does that sound right to you?
We're actually, yeah, so the Monday and Tuesday are correct, and then our state championship finals are on Thursday, May 22nd.
And I think I looked at your current rankings. I think probably Jesuit is your favorite in the gold division.
Yes,
right?
They are ranked number one currently. They have a first round bye this week, and they'll see the quarterfinals on Thursday.
Now, where are these games going to be held?
So the OGLA hosted games Monday. We have the state championship semifinals. Those will be at Liberty High School at 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And then the Silver Cup finals will be at Liberty High School at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. And then the state championship we're hosting at Lake Ridge High School at 7 p.m. on Thursday, May 22nd.
We're going to left with you. I'm going to talk about two things. One, these are issues that might be important to OGLA. One is how's the growth going in the sport? I know you're an Olympic sport in 28. How is the growth going with the girls and the boys?
I think we've made some great progress this year. Our girls' side and boys' side have gotten together, and they actually presented to OSAA in April. This is the first hearing of our documents and showing what kind of growth we've made in the last couple of years. And they'll decide in October if they're going to take us on as an emerging activity for the 2026 year. I would say that in terms of growth, it's obviously a huge sport out here, but we have seen some lower youth numbers that are on their way back up. I think that COVID really took the wind out of our sails a bit, in terms of like new kids coming to the sport. But the cool part is we have some great members of the community that are working with PE programs, and getting those lacrosse sticks into the PE classrooms, which is super cool. This is happening both at the state level and then also at the individual club level. And so we're just exposing kids to the sport earlier. It's not, they're not just like picking it up through rec necessarily. They're actually seeing lacrosse in their classroom, which I think is a great, it's a great ad, and the ability for more visibility to the parents and also the kids at an earlier stage.
I think you'll probably get a bump in activity from the Olympics in 2028. The goal, I think, of course, is to get certification as a high school sport in Oregon. How are you making headway on that?
Well, like I said, we presented to the delegate assembly, and the process of that is when we become emerging, we get some assistance from OSAA to get into the schools and be able to have them assist us with some finances, some scheduling. There's bits that they basically endorse us to help continue to grow us for 2 years. And then if we can make that 50 team threshold, then they may take us on as an OSAA sport. But the first step is getting that emerging activity status, which we're still working towards.
Well, good luck on that, and that chance to get on. Some of our listeners can get out and catch some of the games, or at least catch the semifinals next Tuesday, the Silver Cup Championship. I mean, on Monday, the semifinals, the Silver Cup Championship on Tuesday, or the Gold Cup Championship on Thursday.
Absolutely,
Thanks for
yeah.
joining us, Ali, and we appreciate the information.
Thanks so much, Dave.
All right.
Thanks,
you.
Ali. We'll see you next week over there.
That was informative, Ryan, and Oregon SportsBeat is actually going to be involved in those broadcasts next week, so that'll be good to do too.
We are. We're going to be. Yeah. Hey, Dave. I know you're calling in on your phone. Your reception is a little bit poor. If you have a place that you can move to improve your reception, that would be helpful for myself and the guests and the listeners. Oregon.
Unfortunately, I live in one of those cell phone places that, kind of just temperamental, but I've made a change here.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds a little better. Oregon SportsBeat will be out there next week covering those games that you guys mentioned. Their playoffs actually start this week with the early rounds. So, for instance, tonight, let's see, no games tonight. Games start up tomorrow night with like the 8-9, 12-5. There's a 7-10 matchup that features Allie's Westview team against Lincoln. An 11-6 matchup. So some of the closer matchups are happening, early this week. And then the silver bracket gets started on Wednesday.
For people who might not be regular lacrosse fans, you can watch a lot of lacrosse. It's on TV. One of the things I like to watch, the Big Ten Network carries all of the big lacrosse matches, and I watch that. Of course, Oregon plays in the Big Ten, so they're on there quite a bit. But it's a great channel to watch, and the games are great. I know we're going to do. Go ahead.
Very much a new sport around here, especially on the girls' side. I guess the boys' side has been around for maybe a generation now. You're starting to see kids come up that just starting the second generation on the boys' side. The girls' side is a little bit newer, maybe 10 or 15 years behind it. So, it's new, interesting, and always something to learn when we're out watching lacrosse.
All right. Want to talk a little bit about baseball?
Yeah, let's transition into one of our other spring sports, baseball. Give us a quick rundown on the high school scene.
Okay, I kind of wanted to review the top 10 baseball teams in the state right now, because we are moving to baseball playoffs here very shortly. This is a great time of year for sports in high school because of all the playoffs. Here's the top 10 baseball teams. right now. 1 West Lynn, 2 South Salem, and interestingly, South Salem is the only undefeated team in the state. They are 20-0. Truett number 3, Clawson number 4, Roseburg number 5. Central Catholic is number 6. Ended the game last Friday night, and we're going to be joined in just a minute by Justin Barchus, the head coach of Central Catholic. Jesuit is 7, Wells is number 8, Sheldon number 9, and McMinnville number 10. So kind of getting close to that being final order for the rankings as they come out, and then we'll determine the playoff teams. We're going to talk with Coach Barchus, and one of the things we're going to talk about is the new playoff format in the Mount Hood Conference before they even get to the state playoffs, because it's a little complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the explanation on that, because they have changed it up this year. We've got Justin ready to come on the show, so why don't we bring him on and ask him about that playoff situation?
Yeah, let's bring in Coach Barchus.
Hey guys, you hear me?
Hi, Coach.
Hey Dave, how we doing?
Good. We talked last night. You've been the coach now for, I believe, 3 years at Central Catholic, the boys.
I've actually been the coach for
right?
5 years, I guess 4 if you include the COVID year that got canceled. So 2020 would have been my first year there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations on being ranked in the top 10, and congratulations on a big win last Friday night over Nelson. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Nelson game, since I get it, I'm familiar with it. That was a huge win for the Rams, and your start pitcher, the left-hander, the freshman, Sam Smith, he looked really good.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a big win for us. Our league this year is really deep. Nelson's in 5th place, but they have a chance to win a couple playoff games. So yeah, it was really good for us to get off to a good start in the series. And Sam Smith, yeah, you mentioned him, freshman left-handed pitcher. He's been fantastic this year. He's the number 1 rated player by Prep Baseball Report in his class, and I think he's been able to showcase that this year a little bit on the mound and at the plate. And yeah, he actually gave up an unearned run against Nelson, and it was the first run he had given up in the entire league season. So he's been doing a good job, not trying to overthrow or do anything that's out of his realm of capabilities, and stay within himself, and that's helped him be really successful this year.
You know what I liked about him when I saw on Friday night? 1, he's a left-hander. 2 is he has excellent control. I think he might have walked 1 batter during the entire game. Didn't strike out a lot, but he had pinpoint control, and nobody was able to get a really long ball off of him. So I thought he looked really good. You were telling me about his development from the start of the season. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, when any freshman comes in, even the really talented ones, early on, you don't want to put too much on their plate. We have a pretty experienced team that he was coming into. His teammates accepted him really fast just because, again, there's not a lot of ego with him. He just shows up, works hard, does what he's supposed to, and then, has success. So, early on, we used him as a little bit as a reliever, and just kind of saw what he had, and he had good moments, and he had some not so good moments, some young kid moments. And just because of our pitching staff and the way it kind of set up, we went through a couple guys and trying to find a 3rd guy in our rotation, and decided to give him the chance against Tigard. And he actually went out and he gave up 2 runs in the first, and then didn't give up a run the rest of the game through a complete game against them. And that kind of parlayed into what his run of pitching has been. And like you said, he doesn't give up a lot of free bases. We preach to our pitching staff. It's for high school kids, it's really hard to string together 4 or 5 consecutive base hits in an inning. So if we can not give free bases and not make mistakes in the field defensively and help him out, then we're going to be pretty successful. And he's definitely been able to throw all 3 of his pitches for strikes, which has been extremely valuable against some really good competition that he's faced.
And you let him go the distance Friday night.
Yep, no, we've let him go the distance. His pitch count actually remains relatively low for guys throwing complete games. I think he's only got up to above 95 one time in pitch count, and I think he was around 70 something, 77 maybe on Friday night. Again, just because he attacks the strike zone, lets hitters get themselves out, and he's still averages about 7 to 10 strikeouts per game, but doesn't go up there and try to strike out 14 or 15.
How do you handle the pitch count issue for your pitchers during the season?
I think it's a balance. I think part of it is the rules, right? Where they have rest days that are required based on the pitch count
Right.
rules, but part of it is just taking care of the kids too. It's for us, it's a progression. We have our own set of rules in pitch counts as far as their first outing, your second outing, and we ramp up based on what outing it is in the year early on, and then once you get to about your fourth or fifth start, depending on the person, we just go by the rules for the OSAA. But no, it's definitely a balance. We're fortunate that we do have a lot of arms, so it's not as much of a dancing around numbers game for us. We kind of like to stay in rotation and not try to overuse guys, but it's going to get a little tricky. I know we're going to kind of move into talking about the league tournament here, but it's going to get a little tricky with these last five games over 7 days, and get a couple days off right into the state playoffs.
Mm-hmm. All right, we talked a little bit about pitching. Let's talk about the hitting, particularly your first baseman, Wyatt Brown. When he hit that ball for the home run, the minute it left the bat, I knew it was gone.
Yep.
Brushed it and went over the left field fence. So that was a great hit. But he had a couple of hits in the game.
Yeah. Wyatt's been a 3-year starter. He's a 2-time first team all league first baseman. I think the piece that gets overlooked about him is how unbelievable he is defensively at first base. I think it gets a little taken for granted, but he is nimble of foot over there, and he is a very good defender at first base. And offensively, early on, him and Lance, kind of our main cogs in the middle of our lineup were starting a little slow, but as you saw the other night with them combining for 6 hits between them, they've gotten warm, and when we're hoping to keep that going. But Wyatt's he's hit in the middle of our lineup for 3 years now, and again, it's one of those things that sometimes you take for granted, having a guy that is experienced in the middle there and is gonna put together quality at bats time after time. But no, Wyatt definitely has the ability to do what he did Friday night, and but he also is not necessarily a high strikeout guy either. He's not the traditional 4 hitter, so he can run a little bit, he can hit to contact, and we're very fortunate to have him.
Well, you won that game against Nelson 9-1. That made you 12-1 in the Mount Hood Conference with 1 game left. Clinched the Mount Hood Conference championship, clinched the number 1 seed there. So that was a big game. Now you're headed towards the playoff after, I believe, you play Nelson tomorrow night. And the Mount Hood Conference has kind of a different structure for the playoffs. Can you explain that to us, what it's going to be?
Yeah, so just a quick correction. We have not clinched the actual league championship. We did clinch the number 1 seed going into the round robin there at the end. But we put ourselves in a good spot. We play Nelson again on Tuesday, and they're going to throw their best guy at us, and he's been a first team all league pitcher a couple times, so we're going to have our work cut out for us there. But after that, what we're trying to do in the league is make it as fair and balanced as possible. And we have one too many teams in our league. We have 8 teams. So if everybody played each other in a 3-game series, which is traditional for the most other leagues, we would have 21 league games, which is too many. If we want to play non-league games, we want to travel. A lot of teams want to do that. So we decided, instead of going with an unbalanced schedule where you play certain teams 3 times and certain teams twice, we would play everybody 2 times. So the entire league plays each other twice, which gives you 14 games, which comes to an end on Tuesday, tomorrow, after we play Nelson. Then we base off of
Mhm.
those standings. The top 5 teams in the league will all play each other one more time in a round robin setting. So 1 versus 5, 1 versus 4, 1 versus 3, 1 versus 2 for us
Well,
specifically.
I think it's probably pretty clear who those 5 teams are going to be because the
Yeah,
bottom 3 teams don't have a chance to get in it. It's going to be you, Sandy, Clackamas, Barlow, and Nelson.
correct. Correct. Yeah, there's still a
Okay.
little based on the Clackamas and Sandy game on Tuesday. There's still a little bit of dancing that could be done as far as where the seeds are. But yes, those 5 teams
Hmm.
are clinched. And so we'll play Thursday, Friday, Monday, and Wednesday against those 4 teams, which, in any given year, you usually have maybe the 4 and the 5 seed aren't quite as strong, but this year specifically, this is as good as the Mount Hood's been since I've been here. And there's 5 teams. Again, I think 4 of these teams won first round playoff games last year. Nelson gave up 3 runs in the bottom of the 7th to lose theirs, but was right there with Westview, who ended up being a quarterfinal team. So, I am not hesitant to say this is a league that there's 4 or 5 teams that could make a run in the playoffs. So that's no easy no easy going here in the next week with playing Clackamas, Sandy, Nelson, and Barlow again.
It looks to me like you played Nelson Friday night. You play them again tomorrow night. And it looks to me like you open a round robin, it's going to be you and Nelson. You'll play them 3 times in a week.
Yeah, yep. We'll play them. We'll play 'em. I think that's actually the one that is set. We will play at Nelson again on Thursday. So, which I like because we get to see different pitchers every time as opposed to having to come back around and maybe see their best guy twice. So, I like the series format. It's just traditional baseball. It rewards those that have deep pitching staffs, and we'll approach Nelson here. We got 2 big games, and I think if we play well in the next couple days, I think we'll put ourselves in a really good position to hopefully achieve our first goal and clinch in the Mount Hood Championship.
So how many teams will make the baseball playoffs?
32. 32 make the state playoffs, and it's just a
Or from
regular
the Mount Hood
bracket.
Conference?
There, well,
From the Mount Hood Conference?
yeah, I think what it's going to end up being is 5. The top 5 will make the OSAA playoffs the way it is now. I think Reynolds is just outside. They're like 35 or 36. And
They're
so I think,
actually in today's poll, they're 37.
okay, yeah. So they'll have a tough time making it just because the teams they play here down the stretch don't have great RPI ratings, so it'll be tough for them to make a jump. But yeah, the top 5 will make it. I think all top 5 are in the top 22. I think Nelson's the lowest at 22, so that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. Well, Coach, I appreciate you joining us. It's been a pleasure doing your games, and we'll continue to follow those. And thanks for updating us on the player structure, and good luck to the Rams going forward.
Hey, thanks very much, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Well, Ryan, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense now. The playoff for the league playoff structure and why they did it and how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And all 5 teams are going to benefit from. They'll all be able to raise
Right.
their stock. They'll have the opportunity to jump up a little bit with their seeding, maybe get a chance to host a first round game instead of have to travel for a first round game. So I like
Right. The lowest ranked team. The lowest of the 5 is Nelson at 21. They'll be playing teams, it's going to raise everybody's RPI. You and I have talked in the past. One of the things that's frustrating is when a team plays a team that's not very good, beats them by a lot, and falls in the rankings. That's what the league is trying to prevent.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's happened in the Mount Hood Conference quite a bit in the last few years over multiple sports. Football has been affected by it. And,
we've seen bad results.
It makes a huge difference for football. It's the difference of hosting a semifinal game versus not hosting a semifinal game. And that's a big game against a tough opponent in any year. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe some of the other sports in the Mount Hood Conference or other conferences kind of gravitate towards a more unique league playoff structure like baseball's done.
Just briefly, let's talk a little bit about softball. We, of course, cover Central Catholic. Central Catholic is third in the Mount Hood Conference. They're actually, I shouldn't say third, they're one of the three teams tied for first. Gresham, Nelson, and Central Catholic are all 8-2 in league play. So things are looking good for them, too, although the Mount Hood Conference has nobody ranked in the top 10 in the state. But those playoffs will be coming up shortly, too.
Yeah, I believe they're going to start up week after. Let's see, next week. They finish up league this week.
I believe it is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on the date. We're going to do another one of these shows next Monday, so the playoff picture will be becoming a lot more clear at that point.
Right. This time of the year is playoff action in virtually all sports as we're getting close to the end of the year. So I'm looking forward to covering some of the sports and getting some of the people that are involved in those on SportsBeat Weekly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do you want to introduce our next guest, and Jim can bring him into the room?
We're going to be joined by John Tawa. And John is one of those people, if you ever are looking for information about high school sports and games coming up and all of that, you can go to OSAA.today and they have information up to well-written articles. They have some information about games that are played, some outstanding facts and stuff. John, along with Jerry Ulmer, does that for OSAA. We're going to bring him on. We're going to talk about OSAA, talk about how that works and where they get the sources. We're bringing John on for another reason, though, and this was something that caught my attention a couple of weeks ago, was John's son, Tim, who is probably familiar to most people as the quarterback when West Lynn won the state football championship. I believe, Ron, that he gave it, Central Catholic in that championship game. And then Tim went on to Stanford, played baseball. About 3 weeks ago, the Arizona Diamondbacks called him up for the first time to the majors. He got his first base hit. He got his first home run. He's now got 5. And of course, John is Tim's dad. We'll talk a little bit about what it's like being a dad for your son called up to Major League Baseball. So, John Tawa joining us. John, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me.
Hi, John. How's everything going?
Everything's great. I'm in San Francisco right now.
You told me yesterday or last night you're there to see the next 3 games for the Diamondbacks against the Giants, right?
That's correct.
And I've been following the Diamondbacks. I've watched them. They're doing pretty good.
Well, that's a matter of opinion. The expectations were really high at the beginning of the year, and hopefully they will, have a sustained streak of winning now that will allow them to lengthen. They're only 1 game over 500. They should be probably 10 games over 500. Right. So we're hoping for better bullpen and a more consistent offensive approach.
All right, we'll talk about Tim in just a second. I want to talk with you a little bit about the OSAA today. When I was talking to you yesterday, you told me you and Jerry Ulmer started that about 5 years ago. What was the thought in starting that?
Actually, I called Jerry to make sure. We started in 2018. And the idea was, given that newspapers were starting to fade away a little bit, charge for their content, reduce their prep writing staffs, that coverage of high school sports was beginning to wane across the state, and that there needed to be a place where people could go and read about high school sports for free. So I pitched the idea to Pete Weber, the executive director at the OSAA, that as the steward for sports, high school sports here in the state, that maybe they felt a responsibility to continue to have media coverage of all the sports, and he agreed, and so we've been doing it for 7 years now. Jerry does a great job. Jerry's full-time, used to be with the Oregonian, was their top prep writer there, in my opinion, and He does a great job. He works really hard to make sure that kids are celebrated. We only write about the positive aspects of sport. Sometimes there are negative aspects. We kind of chuck those to the side. We let kids be kids, but we do love to celebrate when teams and players do well.
I miss those, I miss the sports section in the newspaper and the sports editors and the comment pages and stuff. I miss all of that. So, you've filled a gap for me and probably for a lot of other people too. Let's talk a little bit about if you're going to write about high school sports. I don't know how many high schools there actually are, hundreds across the state. How do you get information on all those schools? What are your sources that you use?
Well, I will say that Jerry and I go about it quite differently. Jerry is very much old school. He thinks about what he wants to write about, and he places a phone call and talks to a coach. I work through email. I have set up a mass email list of all the high school coaches across the state in all the various sports. It's up to them if they want to participate. Every week when I'm preparing a notebook, every week I will send out an email saying, I want to know what your team is doing. And I say this at the same time. I say, look, you may think there's nothing interesting about your team, but I guarantee you there is. And what I want is the most interesting 3 minutes you have. I don't want more than 3 minutes, but I want 3 minutes, because if 100 coaches give me 3 minutes, I'm going to be bogged down. So think about what you're going to tell me. Think about the most interesting thing that's happening in your program. Look at the clock, type for 3 minutes, and then stop. So basically, I harvest the best ideas from the varsity high school coaches across the state.
You limit yourself to input on the coaches, right? You don't entertain fans and stuff in.
No, not at all. In fact, no fans, no parents, no players even. It's such a slippery slope if you do that. I don't want to do that. I want to be credible, but I certainly can't have parents sending me emails or trying to talk to me about their kid or things that are happening in their program. And if I'm not hearing it from the coach, then I'm not hearing it at all.
What I like about reading your stories, and I do read them all the time, and I use them for podcasts. I can go to them and I can look, and maybe there's an article about Jesuit dominating a soccer game, and the next article might be something like a pitcher from Pilot Rock had no hitter. I like to cover the broad range of sports and all the classifications of teams.
Yeah, there has been a perceived bias in favor of Portland area schools and other Willamette Valley type population zones. And I don't feel like it's my responsibility and it's our responsibility to make sure that we cover everybody equally. I remember I drove 3.5 hours one time from the Portland area out to Weston McEwen to cover a high school football game. And they were playing Hefner at the time, I think. And I stayed in the head football coach's barn afterwards. And that was it. I drove for a 90-minute football game, and then I spent the night and I drove home. And it was important to do that because, their sports are being played everywhere, from the Idaho border down to Astoria to Brookings Harbor to Burns. Why are we not? We need to be covering all of it, not just a little of it, not just a subset of it, all of it, because kids are doing great things. They're as passionate and committed to the sport in all the places, not just in the major metropolitan population zones.
I've been doing sports with Oregon SportsBeat for 10 years, and we try to cover all sports in all locations. I recall one time my producer and we drove to Gold Beach to do a soccer game, and the people there were so excited that we were there that it was I saw those small communities, how much they loved having some attention.
Yeah, the football game I saw, I loved. There were some traditions, some halftime traditions that I just hadn't seen before, and really just enjoyed being under the Friday night lights. As dim as those lights were, and maybe as outdated as those lights were, it was still really fun to see grass fields again, rutted, and where the spot for second base has dirt on it. It's just fun to be a part of that scene.
I started my broadcast career in 1981, driving to the coast to do Tillamook football games, and when the broadcasters came into town, it was like they were royalty. All right. Well, I appreciate you telling us all about that. Let's talk about all your sons for a second. You were telling me yesterday that your sons, all three of your sons, have been, I believe you said, All-Americans. Is that right?
No. No.
Oh.
All three of my sons all three played at West Lynn. They were all
Right.
They all played football. Tim also played basketball and baseball. Jordy wrestled and played baseball. But they were all first team All-State football players.
There we go.
And my understanding is that they're the only three brothers to ever be first team All-State 6A in football.
All right, well, let's talk about Tim for a second. That's what got my attention when he got called up. I recall back when Tim was the quarterback, won the state championship in football, and then when it was announced after that he was headed to Stanford to play baseball, it caught some people by surprise, but I think you were telling me that they knew about that for a while.
Yeah, so Tim was honorable mention All-State outfielder as a freshman at West Lynn. So he was on the baseball radar back in eighth grade. In eighth grade, he was offered scholarships by both Washington and Oregon State. So he had been identified as a prospect in baseball from a very early age, even before he grew into his body. Stanford, in Tim's sophomore year, in the fall of his sophomore year, I think when he was in week 8 of his first varsity football campaign, Stanford offered him a baseball scholarship. And Stanford is Stanford. It's academically and athletically the best blend in the country. Place that Tim always wanted to go to. We're a very academic family. So they offered him a substantial scholarship to play baseball, and it was just impossible for him to say no. So before he was a bona fide football prospect, he was already committed to play baseball at Stanford. And in our family, we believe that commitment meets commitment, and so baseball was going to be his path, regardless of how well he achieved from that point forward in the football.
All right, so let's move on past that. Played baseball at Stanford, been in the minor leagues in the Diamondbacks organization, and just got called up. I'm sure that was a big honor for you to have him get to the major leagues. I understand you saw him get his first home run, I believe.
So we were there. We were there in Washington when he got his first hit. I saw it on TV. It was about 20 hours after he called us, telling us he was going up to the big leagues. We had to scramble to find flights, but the Diamondbacks organization reimbursed us for our flights. They put us in the second row. I think they wanted to know where we were in case he did something great, so that the cameras could capture us celebrating. And Tim didn't make us wait long. He hit it the second pitch he saw, 104 miles into left field for a base hit. So that was very exciting. The reason that I know that they really wanted to capture us on film is the next day our tickets were 40 rows back, not right behind the dugout.
Well, he's off to a good start. He's got 5 home runs. So, Tom Marte is back. They called Tim up to play. I'm still getting action, and I'm hoping it sticks.
Yeah, I didn't hear what you said there, but I'm sorry. That's okay. I will just say that Tim's role is changing right now with Marte back, and they just called up today. They just called up Jordan Lawler, the top prospect. So Tim is right. I'm very familiar with him. Tim is going to he's going to play some outfield. He's going to continue to work. Last year in the minors, he played every position but pitcher and catcher. So he is a very capable defender at all positions.
and a really good hitter.
Well, yeah, but the hitting piece is kind of expected. But if you can be versatile like he is, then you can find a role for yourself, even if you're not a so-called star or a starter. And he's not at the point yet where he's fully established in the major leagues. He's at the point where, day to day, week to week, he could be back down in AAA Reno, or he could be up on the bench. The opportunity to start came up because of Marte's injury, but on this Diamondbacks team, there are just so many established regulars. It's hard to find a role that is beyond in a support capacity. So that's where he finds himself. He's just going to do what he can to help the team best he can.
Well, John, I appreciate you joining us. We're up against our time limitation. Appreciate you joining us and talking about OSAA and talking about your son. And let's hope we can follow him all season long and he has a great year. But thanks for joining us here on Oregon SportsBeat and SportsBeat Weekly.
Appreciate you all. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, John.
All right, thanks.
All right. See you, Ryan.
All right, man. Time went fast.
An hour, just like that. Hey, before we go, I want to let people know what's coming up this week.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a boys lacrosse game coming up tomorrow. It's 5:15. Central Catholic versus Wells. They're in their last week of regular season play before playoffs start next week. So 5:15. Oregon SportsBeat.com. That's right. Yep.
Okay.
And then let's see. Next week's show, we're gonna have Charlene Oligar. She's a boys volleyball coach, so we're gonna get to learn about talking about new and emerging sports. Boys volleyball is one of them, so we'll get the lowdown on that.
I'm excited about that.
I'm excited about it too. We'll also have the play-by-play person for the girls lacrosse championships that start next Monday. Britt Hartman will be on the show with us earlier in the day to talk about those matchups, so we know what we have to look forward to.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, that's what we got going on.
Okay. And we'll be doing that
today. Go ahead.
I was just going to say we'll be doing the show next week, and then I think our next two shows are June 2nd and June 9th.
Yeah, we'll take Memorial Day off, and we'll be back the first week of June with our with another show.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for SportsBeat Weekly, a production of Oregon SportsBeat. I'm your host, Dave Hall, along with our co-host, Ryan Johnson. And catch us next Monday at 1 o'clock, and we'll be bringing you new guests, new sports, and we'll talk